I'm an American who's been traveling the world and living abroad for nearly 2 years. And in that time, I've experienced a lot of culture shocks. But the one country that provided the most culture shocks of any was actually the United States of America. Yes, the country that I was born and raised in. And evidently, I am not the only one with this experience. Bearing that in mind, in this video, I will be reacting to Americans experiencing reverse culture shocks after traveling or living abroad. Without further ado, let's get into this first video.
So I'm back in the US, which means I can finally share my unfiltered thoughts from a car, not from the busy streets of London. And I gotta say, this is so much better. I am so jealous of American TikTokers that get to share their thoughts from their car, as opposed to like trying to vlog down a street. And then people think I'm crazy. But anyway, not the point of this video. I just went grocery shopping and I had like 3 bits of weird reverse culture shock because I haven't been grocery shopping in the US in a long time. So the person ringing up my groceries was standing. And I did know this, and I do know that a lot of people in the UK sit. And it is so unfair to me that grocery shop workers have to stand at most places in the US. Wild. They deserve to sit. There's no need for them to stand for their entire shift. Second, when I was getting the food put in bags, the guy did it himself. And I used to really miss that. I used to hate bagging items myself, but now it felt like such a waste of time, but B, like, I can do it, buddy. Like, you don't need to, that's not part of your job. I got it. And the third was the customer service. And I know whenever Brits come to America, they always like complain about how overly friendly Americans are. And I gotta say, I had a full conversation with my guy as he was ringing me up, and then continued the conversation because it wasn't over after he was done bagging my stuff. So we were still talking while the next people were waiting in line, but no one was impatient. Like, everyone's used to it. The person in front of me was having a lovely chat with the guy too, like full conversation. And it just, yeah, it's wild how different the US and the UK are when it comes to like even something as simple as groceries. Nuts.
So my biggest takeaway from this video, and this is something that I've noticed in my experience as well, and I also have a unique perspective to offer on this being here in Asia, but I'll get to that in a second. It seems like in the US, customer service workers, so that could be a cashier, that could be a server at a restaurant, or anything else in between. They're there to serve you. Whereas in Europe, they're there to help you. And that is a very subtle difference in semantics, but in practice, it makes all the difference. Now, I actually resonated a little bit with what he was saying about being able to film in the privacy of a car versus filming out on the street in public, because I'm an introvert. I'm a very big introvert, and I do relish the opportunity to be able to film in a private space for that reason. And for that same reason, I also relish how the European customer service workers let you do your thing. They don't feel compelled to start up a conversation with you. They don't feel the need to infringe upon your personal space or your family time or your personal time with friends, whatever it may be. They just let you do your thing. And some Americans, for whatever reason, they think this is bad. And I don't know why. For the life of me, I don't understand why that's the case. I could maybe attribute it to a generational issue because I don't think any of my friends have this perspective. No one that I know in my age range really sees things like this. So maybe it's kind of a generational and cultural thing. Thankfully, it seems like, again, we're kind of washing that component of the American psyche out of the American psyche, out of the zeitgeist. But I mean, when you talk about making people stand up while working at the cash register, I've been on the cash register at multiple jobs, so I know when you're working that 8-hour shift, your legs and your back are sore. I don't care how in shape you are, your legs and your back are sore because you're just standing for 8 hours. You're not even really moving that much. And in some places, I've heard that they'll even get on you for leaning on the counter. Makes no sense at all. So again, I think that just comes back to Americans having the expectation, and again, I should specify older Americans having this expectation that they are there to serve you. Now, I've noticed that here in Asia, it might be even more egregious in some ways, in that when you go into a store, they literally will just follow you around. And I'm not gonna lie, when I first got to Asia and they were doing this to me, maybe I played the victim card a little bit. I don't know what you would call it, but I kind of just assumed it was because I was black. Because in the US, that's pretty much the only reason why somebody would ever follow you around in a store. But no, it's just normal here. That's considered good service. So again, I think it comes back to people having the expectation that they will be served. And as someone who once worked in the service industry, really who only ever worked in the service industry before doing YouTube, that sounds like hell to me personally. It sounds like absolute hell. I mean, something he didn't mention in there was that in the US, they have greeters. They have greeters at the door, typically old people who need the money, and they literally just sit in front of the door and greet you all day. That's what they do. And I actually read a story recently on Reddit where somebody was saying that they got in trouble with upper management because as a manager of a Walmart, I believe it was, they allowed the greeter, who was an elderly person, maybe even elderly and partially disabled, to sit down on a stool. They got in major trouble for that. And it got to the point where they were literally threatening to fire this person if they saw them doing it again. Unbelievable. This person right here said, the first time I shopped for groceries abroad in France, I stood there while the groceries piled up as the cashier rang them up. Some international friends I made asked why I wasn't putting them in bags. I was truly shocked. No, I'm not gonna lie, that's probably the kind of mistake I would have made as well if I hadn't had my girlfriend with me, because that was one of those things that I had never heard of before. It was just completely inconceivable to me as someone who had worked in the customer service industry, because if you made the customers bag their own stuff at an American store, you'd probably get fired, or at the very least you'd get written up. So I can see how that was very shocking, but you realize after a while when you spend time in other countries that a lot of jobs in the US are really just unnecessary. I mean, bagging groceries, I can see maybe if you have a 14-year-old who needs a job or something like that, and you don't have anything else to make them do, then you might have them do something like that at a local family store. But as far as a big box store like Walmart or Target or somewhere like that, it just doesn't really make any sense. This person said, Swede here. Yeah, nah, the last person made me irritated just listening to it. Just let me pay and leave. Don't get me started on having to stand behind and listen to people, including the one who works there talking. I would find that unprofessional. Making me wait? I can never live there. I go to the grocery store to buy food, not make friends. Exactly. 100%. Even though the people weren't vocalizing their displeasure with that situation, I'm sure at least one of them was pissed off. I know I would be as well. And I've been working on my patience, alright? I've been working on my patience, but that right there would probably piss me off. Maybe I belong in one of the Scandinavian countries, because I just don't really like interacting with people a whole lot. On to the next video.
My dumbest reverse culture shocks from being back in the US for the past week and a half. And when I say dumb, I don't mean that they're actually dumb things, except for some of them are. It's more that they're just silly little things that I literally forget about having lived in France for the last 8.5 years, and then I come back to the US and I'm like, oh yeah, that's still a thing. Starting off, the eggs in the fridge. It's so weird. And the reason why Americans need to put eggs in the fridge drives me crazy. Next up, the gap under and between bathroom stalls, like literally why? Okay, the distances and times to literally just get from point A to point B blows my mind every time I come home. Like, what do you mean it's an 11-minute drive and almost a 2-hour walk? Like, how is that possible? And that's not gonna be a pretty walk. That's gonna be like down a highway or down some boring side streets. Okay, next, I don't have a video of this, but the amount of people wearing screen printed t-shirts, sports gear, university gear, and baseball hats is astounding to me. Like, it's practically a uniform, and I never really thought about how few logos I see on clothes in France. But here, it is literally so in your face. Everybody looks basically like a walking billboard for their favorite sports team or for their school. Last but not least, several bar-related reverse culture shocks I have. Of course, the fact that you get ID'd here. And like, trust me, I get it. It's the law, and like, these people are just doing their jobs. And while I am religious about my skincare, like, I don't look younger than 21. Like, please just give me some wine. Speaking of wine, what the literal heck is going on with being served wine in cans? It's happened to me twice here already, once at a concert and once at a bar. So is that just like a thing now? I also totally forget how obsessed Americans are with ice. And every single drink or glass of water has so much ice in it. Last bar observation is about bars that have arcade games in them. That in and of itself is not that weird, but I am really curious if any other country in the world has this game Big Buck Hunter where it's normal to shoot guns at animals while you're sipping a little drink. I'm genuinely curious, does this game exist outside of the US? If you live abroad, I'm super curious what your reverse culture shocks are when you go back to visit your home country. Let me know.
So she raised some really good points throughout that video, the first of which being the stall gaps. I love that she actually put a video that shows that you can in fact see people who are in the stall across from you. It's very uncomfortable, and I have unfortunately made incidental eye contact with people as I was walking past the stalls on multiple occasions, and that is not something that you really want to experience. And I think the reason why this is the case is because public restrooms tend to be free. Now, initially, I'm not going to lie, when I first went to Europe, I was still stuck in that typical American mentality of why are restrooms paid? But when I actually entered the public restrooms, I realized why you have to pay money. It's because it's a better experience overall. And I guess I can't speak to all of Europe because I haven't been to all of Europe, but at least in the Netherlands and in the UK, those are the countries I remember the most in this regard, you never saw stall gaps like that. You never, ever saw stall gaps like that. And you also, to her point, never saw people wearing university gear. And really, graphic tees in general. That's a very big thing in the US. At least it was when I left the US. I don't know about now. But graphic tees are very common. To her point, university branded stuff, that's very popular. And the worst thing is, look, I used to work at H&M, right? That was one of the service industry jobs I worked at. Worked at H&M in the US. I remember they sold this sweatshirt that said Harvard on it. And people would wear these sweatshirts, but they didn't even go to Harvard. They went to community college. So I was like, what's the point of getting this sweatshirt and you don't even go to Harvard? They just want to be associated with the prestige attached to the Harvard name. And on one hand, I get that if you actually went to Harvard, because that's kind of the whole point of going there. But if you went to North Central Texas College, or I don't know, the University of North Texas, something like that, there's really no need for you to be wearing that. And as far as wine in a can, I don't drink alcohol, so I wouldn't really know much about that, but I don't think I've ever seen that either. And I'm sure that there is at least one European person watching this who audibly gasped when she showed that. So I don't really know what to make of that personally. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. And speaking of comments, yes, how is a 4-minute drive a 45-minute walk? A 45-minute walk in Bremen or Aberdeen was at least a 10 to 15-minute drive. That's something that I forgot to mention. Yes, I'm glad that she showed the difference, the discrepancy in the travel times in the US, where driving can literally save you 90% of your trip time over walking. Because in the Netherlands, it's actually the opposite more often than not. Cycling is oftentimes the fastest and most efficient way to get anywhere within your general vicinity, within around maybe a 2 square kilometer distance. Biking is going to be the fastest path, and that's because they design it that way, and that's something that the US clearly doesn't have a good grasp of, hence the American dependence on the car. On to the next video. Those portion sizes are absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I'm sure I've mentioned this in various videos, but I'm going to mention it again. If you're able to purchase such a large quantity of something, especially if it's something fresh, like fruit, for example, you go to Sam's Club or Costco, you can get a big thing of grapes or a big thing of strawberries. You have to wonder, is that actually high quality fruit? Or are they high quality vegetables or produce or bread? Because realistically, the reason why these things typically come in smaller packages is because they're fresh, therefore they spoil quicker. They don't have all of these artificial preservatives in them. So when we think about the fact that you can get a big thing of strawberries that are this big, maybe that's not really the best thing to be putting into your body.